Welcome back, deep divers. Today we are going on a journey to explore the amazing world of cells.
Cells, the fundamental units of life, everywhere.
Exactly. And we've got a great guide to help us along the way, biobun.pdf. It's going to break
All
down,
complex stuff.
break down the differences between those simple prokaryotic cells
The simple ones.
and the more complex eukaryotic cells.
The really complex ones.
Yeah. And these cells make up, everything.
From tiny bacteria
To plants,
Animals?
to you and me.
it's going to be a wild ride. From the familiar
Like a bacteria in our yogurt.
to the truly mind-boggling.
Ugly.
Like, did you know that your cells have little powerhouses?
Little powerhouses.
Yeah, with their own DNA.
Okay, I am ready to be mind-boggled. Let's start with bacteria. You know those single-celled wonders that seem to be everywhere?
Everywhere. What's fascinating about them is that they're incredibly diverse
Diverse.
and can thrive in practically any environment,
Wow.
all without a nucleus, no less.
So their DNA is just floating around. Basically, it's in a region called the nucleoid.
No nucleus, but still going strong. And biobun.pdf mentions all kinds of shapes of bacteria.
Oh yeah, it's like a microscopic fashion show. We've got the round ones.
Round one.
Kochi, think of them like tiny marbles.
Tiny marbles, okay.
Some types of kochi cluster together.
Cluster together.
Yeah, like grapes. That's how they get the name staphylococcus.
Staph infections, I've heard of those.
Exactly. Then there's the streptococci that form chains.
Chains.
Yeah, like little pearl necklaces. And of course, the rod-shaped bacilli.
The cilia, okay.
Some of them even have a curve to them,
The curves.
like the vibrio that causes cholera,
Nature is so amazing. It's like a whole world.
of microscopic shape.
And arrangements?
And don't forget, these little guys are everywhere.
Everywhere. You said it.
In the soil,
Like air.
inside us.
Even inside you.
Some of them are even good for us, right?
Absolutely essential. Some bacteria help us digest food.
And some break down organic matter in the environment, right?
Think about compost, right? And yogurt gets its tang from bacteria.
Friendly bacteria.
Biobun.pdf mentions that bacteria can reproduce super fast.
Quickly, yeah, they keep it simple.
Simple how?
They just split in two.
Split two.
Yeah, creating two identical daughter cells.
Interesting.
Scientists grow them in the lab in incubators to keep them warm
Wow, so they're multiplying
and adapted.
at incredible speed. Biobun.pdf also says something about them being able to live with or without oxygen.
Oh yeah, those are the facultative anaerobes.
Facultative anaerobes.
They can switch between using oxygen when it's available and using other pathways when oxygen is scarce.
So adaptable.
Then you've got the aerobes that need oxygen and the anaerobes that can't tolerate it at all.
So many different types.
They're amazing.
Okay, so we've got these tiny
Shape-shifting,
oxygen juggling organisms.
resilient is the word.
Resilient. And biobun.pdf even mentions some serious survival mechanisms, like hitting the pause button on life.
Spores. Some bacteria can form spores when things get tough.
Well, dryness,
Heat, even lack of nutrients.
so they hibernate
And
until conditions improve.
like tiny time travelers. And spores can last a really long time.
Yeah, incredibly long.
That's why sterilizing medical equipment is so important.
You have to kill those spores.
Wow, incredible. But they have weaknesses, right? How do we fight back against the harmful bacteria? I mean, they're so adaptable.
Well, that brings us to antibiotics.
Antibiotics.
And the big problem, antibiotic resistance.
Oh, right.
Bacteria can actually share DNA,
Wow.
even between different species.
Passing notes.
More like trading cards.
Trading cards.
Yeah, they exchange these little pieces of DNA
Pieces of DNA.
called plasmids. They can carry genes
Genes for what?
for things like antibiotic resistance.
So if one figures it out,
It can share that knowledge with its neighbors.
through the plasmids.
Exactly.
We just-
You've got a whole population of bacteria that can resist the antibiotic.
So that's why.
It's so important to finish the whole course of antibiotics, even if you feel better.
Yep. Even if you feel better, if you stop early,
You could be leaving some resistant bacteria behind.
and they can multiply and spread that resistance.
Wow, it's like a microscopic arms race.
Constantly evolving.
Okay, well, that's kind of scary. But putting that aside for now, how do these bacteria eat? They need to eat, right?
Of course. Just like us, they need energy.
And how do they get it?
Well, biobun.pdf talks about two main ways.
Two ways.
Some are like tiny scavengers.
Scavengers.
We call them heterotrophs.
Heterotrophs.
They consume organic matter,
break it down for energy.
like composters.
Okay, like recyclers.
Exactly. Then you've got the other type.
The other type.
They're like miniature plants.
Plants.
Yeah, they're called autotrophs.
Autotrophs.
They produce their own food.
Like plants using sunlight.
Exactly, through photosynthesis or even chemical reactions.
So some are scavengers and some are solar powered.
It's amazing, right?
And speaking of amazing, biobun.pdf mentions all these structures.
Structures.
Yeah, like capsules.
Capsules.
Fimbriae.
Fimbriae.
And flagella.
Flagella.
Bacterial accessories.
You could say that. Each one has a special function.
Okay, like what?
Well, the capsule, it's a slimy layer around some bacteria.
Slimy.
Yeah, helps them stick to surfaces, your teeth,
Ew.
or the lining of your intestines. It helps them avoid our immune system, too.
Sneaky.
Very sneaky. Then there's fimbriae,
Wishart.
tiny grappling hooks.
Grappling hooks.
Helps them attach to things.
Bacterial anchors.
And then you've got flagella.
Okay.
They're like tails.
Tail.
Yeah, whip-like tails
What?
to help them move around.
So it's food or
Away from danger.
so complex.
And that's just prokaryotes, the simplest cells.
Right. Biobun.pdf says there's another level of complexity.
Eukaryotic cells,
Eukaryotic.
the building blocks of plants, animals,
And us.
and you, ready to level up.
Take us deeper into the eukaryotic world.
Well, the key difference,
Let me read. The nucleus.
eukaryotic cells have a true nucleus.
What does that mean?
It's where their DNA is stored
It's safely.
and organized, unlike prokaryotes.
Where it's just floating around.
Exactly.
So the nucleus is like the control center.
Command center.
Makes sense. And this allows for greater complexity
And more specialized functions.
due to
Organelles.
organelles. What are those?
Think of them as the specialized departments of the cell, each with its own unique job to do.
Okay, like what? Give me some examples.
Well, we've got the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell.
Powerhouse.
That's what they call them. They're responsible for producing energy.
They sound important.
Oh, they are. They're like tiny furnaces burning fuel to power all the cell's activities.
And how do they do that?
Through cellular respiration.
Cellular respiration, okay.
And get this, they generate this special energy currency called ATP.
ATP, what's that?
It's like tiny batteries that fuel all the cell's functions.
Wow, so mitochondria are like the energy factories of the cell.
Exactly. And here's another mind-blowing fact.
Hit me.
Mitochondria have their own DNA,
Their own DNA.
separate from the DNA in the nucleus.
So it's like a cell within a cell.
Pretty much. And then we have ribosomes.
Phagosomes.
They're the protein factories of the cell.
Protein factories.
They take instructions from the DNA in the nucleus and churn out proteins.
And proteins are.
Essential for everything, from building structures to carrying out chemical reactions.
Okay, so ribosomes make proteins. Got it.
Right.
What else is in there?
Well, there's the endoplasmic reticulum, or ER.
ER.
It comes in two varieties, the rough ER and the smooth ER.
Why rough and smooth?
The rough ER is studded with ribosomes.
So it's involved in protein synthesis.
You got it. And the smooth ER.
That's the one that handles lipids and carbohydrates.
Right. Again,
It's like a whole city in there. So much going on.
it really is. Then there's the Golgi apparatus.
Golgi apparatus.
It's the packaging and shipping center of the cell.
What does that mean?
It receives proteins from the ER, modifies them.
Modifies them.
Yeah, adds little tags or changes their shape, runs them off to their final destinations.
So it's like the cell's postal service.
A very efficient one. And we can't forget about the lysosomes.
Lysosomes.
They're the recycling centers of the cell,
Recycling centers.
full of enzymes that break down waste materials.
Keeping the cell clean.
Exactly, like tiny garbage collectors.
This is incredible. Each organelle has such a specific job.
It's all very organized and coordinated.
But wait, what about plant cells? Biobun.pdf mentioned they have some extra features.
Right, plant cells have some unique structures.
Like what?
Well, for one, they have a cell wall.
Cell wall.
It's a rigid outer layer that provides support and protection.
So it's like armor.
Pretty much helps them maintain their shape and withstand stress.
So that's why plants can stand so tall.
Exactly. And then there are plastids, including chloroplasts.
Chloroplasts, those are the ones that do photosynthesis, right?
You got it. They capture sunlight and convert it into energy.
Like solar panels.
Precisely. And then you have vacuoles.
Vacuoles.
They're like large storage compartments.
For what?
Water, nutrients, even waste products.
So they're like the cell's pantry.
You could say that. In plant cells, they also help maintain turgor pressure.
Turgor pressure.
It's what keeps plants upright and prevents wilting.
It's all connected, from the organelles to the plant's structure.
Absolutely.
Okay, but how do these cells get the nutrients they need and get rid of waste? It's like a mini city. There must be a system.
There is. Cells have these incredible transport systems
Transport systems.
to move molecules in and out, like a constant flow of supplies.
And how does that work?
Well, we can break it down into two main categories. Passive transport and active transport.
Passive and active. What's the difference?
Passive transport is like floating downstream.
Downstream.
Yeah, it doesn't require any energy from the cell.
So molecules just move on their own.
They move from areas of high concentration to areas of low concentration naturally.
Trying to balance things out.
Exactly, like finding equilibrium.
And what's an example of that?
Osmosis. The movement of water across a membrane.
Osmosis, I've heard of that.
Imagine a cell like a water balloon.
Okay, I'm imagining it.
If you put it in a solution with a higher concentration of solutes, a hypertonic solution,
What happens?
water rushes out of the cell.
To try to balance things out.
Exactly. Biobun.pdf even uses the analogy of a grape shriveling into a raisin.
Ouch, that sounds rough.
It can be, but cells have ways of regulating this.
So what about active transport?
Active transport is more like swimming upstream.
Upstream.
Yeah, it requires energy from the cell, usually in the form of ATP.
Those little batteries we talked about.
Exactly. Active transport moves molecules against their concentration gradient.
So from low concentration to high concentration. You got it. So the cell has to work for it.
It does. It's like pumping those molecules uphill.
So what's an example of that?
Well, think about nerve cells.
Nerve cells.
They use active transport to maintain the right balance of ions,
Ions.
like sodium and potassium.
Why is that important?
It creates an electrical gradient,
And that allows...
nerve impulses to travel quickly.
It's like the electrical wiring of our body.
Pretty much. But there's more.
More.
Biobun.pdf mentions something about cells eating and spitting out things.
Eating and spitting. What's that about?
Those are endocytosis and exocytosis.
Okay, break those down for me.
Imagine the cell membrane like a flexible Pac-Man.
Okay, I like where this is going.
In endocytosis, the membrane surrounds a particle.
Surrounds it.
Yeah, and forms a little pocket that pinches off inside the cell.
Bringing the particle inside.
That's endocytosis, how a cell takes in things.
Like eating. So how does it spit things out?
That's exocytosis.
Exocytosis.
It's basically the reverse of endocytosis
So the cell packages up waste products,
and releases them outside.
like taking out the trash.
Exactly.
Wow, cells are amazing. Like little self-contained cities.
They really are, with all these complex processes happening at a microscopic scale.
It's mind-boggling how much is going on in there.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
I know, bioburn.pdf gave us a great overview, but it left me with so many questions.
Me too. Like, how did these structures evolve? How do cells communicate with each other to form tissues and organs? And what about the future of cell research?
So many mysteries to unravel.
But that's what makes it so exciting.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from those tiny bacteria to those complex eukaryotic cells.
We've explored their structures, their functions, and even how they manage to stay alive.
And it's clear that cells are far more than just building blocks.
They're dynamic, adaptable, and essential for life as we know it.
And the more we learn about them, the more we realize how much more there is to discover.
So to our listeners, we encourage you to keep exploring this microscopic world. There's a whole universe of wonders waiting to be uncovered.
Maybe dive deeper into a specific type of cell that interests you, or check out the latest breakthroughs in cell biology.
It's all out there waiting to be discovered.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of cells. We hope you've gained a new appreciation for these tiny but mighty units of life.
Until next time, keep those minds curious and those microscopes ready.
See you next time.